morning. This is Judy with Artistic Artifacts in Alexandria, Virginia, and it is Saturday at 9:30. So this is where you should be. We are going to continue our beading lesson, and we have some new stitches, and I have one that I'm gonna show you again, the picot stitch that I'm gonna show you how I did some of my edging. And we wanted to make sure that you did receive our newsletter this past week because we had new bead mixes in there. And there's about 4 or 5 new colors, and when they're out, they're out. We won't be able to make any more, and we'll go on to hopefully some other new bead mix colors. So if there's any that interest you, please, by all means, jump on the wagon. The other thing is we have these books. We had them and we had pictures of them, but we really didn't talk about it. But as I said, this first time beading absolutely should be the first book that you get. Then as you work your way on and getting into more complicated things, you want to work with bead, embroider, and stitching. Kristen Brown has some great tools, and for me, I've always known her as a stitcher with yarn and thread and that. And the way that she converts her beading from those stitches is really quite interesting, and I had not really thought about it. We were part of a blog tour when she introduced her beading book. We have a great blog about what we did and learned from that book, so I would suggest that you go look at those blogs. The other thing is we get a book that's called Inspirations, and I honestly didn't know about this publication until we had the Embroidery Guilds come and have meetings here at the shop. It's an amazing, amazing book. And this has a full section on beading as well. And that is fantastic. The details and the color shifts and all of that happens in there. So we highly recommend this magazine. It's wonderful. So there's some additional materials for you and some reading and some resources that are great to have, and so we hope that that'll give you some idea. So today, let me show you my book and where I am and what I've been working on. So I did a little picot stitching up here, and as I've told you before, I like things very irregular. So if you look at this one, this is more regular. And then here is a totally different look, and that's that stitch. And then the picot stitch is also here. So you can see I did a straight line, but it's done the same way. This 2 beads, a crossover bead, and then the same on the bottom. So those are multiple ways to use that stitch. And I'm gonna show you, I threaded all my needles. Just have to make sure to keep track of where they are. Let's see, there's my red one. This is the one I really want to show you first because it's pretty fun. All right, needle is still attached, yahoo. All right, and I'm doing a mixture. So I've started here. So here's my base, here's my crossover, here's my base. So the next one I'm looking for is a crossover and a base. And I kind of like to do the crossover smaller than the base. So I'm gonna come, and if you can see these stitches on here, I actually zigzagged, as Liz tells you to do in the book, and it helps. So it's pretty easy. And
that's machine zigzag?
Yes. I did a single stitch and an edging. All right, now I want to do a funky one. So you can see these are called lentil. It has the hole on the bottom, not in the middle. So that's going to be my crossover bead. Oh no! All right, cut, light, thread. thing I don't like about this thread is it separates. It's different filaments, and it separates on me. All right, and then I have to come back up, and by coming back up, it kind of snugs that base bead down and holds it in place. So we're gonna do a crossover bead, and I'm using those stitches to hold things in place.
Good morning, Pat.
Crossover bead here, and come back up. Then I need another funky bead, which is a teardrop. I never knew what the names of these are until I started hanging out with Rosalie. I had no idea. Okay. So that is my picot stitch.
So all of that is in this?
No, this probably has extra in it.
Okay.
So, but you do get a good amount. We'll show you how much comes in that jar. I'll when I do another stitch, I'll show you. Okay. So I'm gonna hold on to this, and I'm going to see. I think this blue was in this one. Spice jars are, you know, once you go past those plastic containers, spice jars are the next one to get. So you can see that this is definitely, it's close. And I actually was smart and brought a piece of ultra suede, and that's actually what I'm working on. I will actually stitch on ultra suede a lot, but you know, see, these are these jars. Okay, so and this happens to be from my drawer at home. I actually selected some things, so it's got some bigger chunks than what comes in our purchased kits. If that makes sense. Yeah, our bead mixes. So this is a little chunkier than what you get. All right, and it has all those little funky beads in there, like the lentils. I always put lentils in, leaves. So there, so this is there. Okay. Now, one of the things that Christian Brown does is she has these stencils to guide you for embroidery. But what we thought would be fun was to use them, and this is where they are. You know, they have all of these different shapes. This one is here. I use that here. So that's there. So what I did, and I just used a pencil. Chalk that fits is a little bit better, but it gave me the outline. So here and here. And the stencils are really pretty cool. Okay, threaded needle. And this is a pretty heavy-duty marking because I wanted to make sure that you could see it. I don't know that, you know, I would be a little bit lighter most likely. All right, so here's this. And we're going to do couching. Remember, we did couching the last time. So we have here. So we're going to give yourself a little bit of room here. Come down. underneath, and then I'm going to couch to hold it in place. And I like I do every 2 to 3 beads. Okay, and then I'm going to come up here. Maybe put a funky bead in there. Let's see a few more in there.
You have to have, have you ever been on Facebook before?
All right.
So yeah, you just go to Facebook, and search for artistic artifacts. We have a Facebook page, and when you get on that page.
All right. So again, remember you don't want it to be too tight. So you have a little bit of play in there. So you have, room to do your couching, and because your thread is going to take up space.
Mel, and the back stitch is just another way of doing
Yes.
this, just demonstrating the couching for this purpose.
I find that the back stitch actually gives you a little bit straighter line, and this one I want to be a little more organic because I'm actually doing vines. So we will show you the back stitch next week. So, because we are doing fringe and the back stitch. There. Sorry, I'm holding it towards me instead of towards you. All right, and let's see, do we have a leaf here? So I added these afterwards. Get one at that side. I want one of these. So I'm just adding a little bit of texture by putting an individual bead in there. All right, so that's how I did my vine. So this vine was done the exact same way. And so we will show you the back stitch, which is another way, next week. And as you can see, I just kind of knot. There's not a fancy knot, but here. Then I talked about doing bugle beads last time, about the necessity of that they are actually glass and they will cut your threads if you don't put a leader bead and an ending bead on them. I also would double my thread, so maybe if one cuts, the other one doesn't, so it can help you. So you can see, here's a leader bead, a couple leader beads, here's my bugle bead, which is a long, thin, narrow cylinder, and these are the round ones. This was done individually. Yeah. Helps if you don't nail your hole or not. Okay. So here's that. So that's the minimum of what you want to do, is always, anytime you're stitching, is to make sure. Now, I will sometimes couch this bead here to make sure it's in place where I want it. There. See how it kind of flops open that way? This one's not flopping. That's because I have couched it. There. All right, let me show you one more time. See here.
Suzanne wants to know if you're using double thread.
On these with bugle beads, I am. I think bugle beads are, I mean, it's like if you broke a glass jar. That's how sharp these babies are. All right, so that's working with the bugle beads. And then this is a stone arch in Italy. We had one of our trips, which I think is pretty cool. Most of these pictures are doors in Italy. So then if I just want to use my thread singled, I give myself a little leader, and I'm back to a single thread. So,
So how did you get the pictures on the book? Remind us.
okay, so what I did with the pictures is I took them and I printed them on silk organza. So there we have extravaganza, which is a printable organza, and that is you run it through a laser printer, not an inkjet printer, not a laser printer. Sorry, got that wrong. And then I put them on with Misty Fuse. So there is a fusible behind there that I put on the basis of my book. That is all in the first time beading on how to make that. So
When you're couching, are you couching the bugle bead or the stitch, the thread?
I am couching the thread. So there's another thing. I found these little metallic washer beads that I thought would look like building blocks and stones and things that I would put on there. All right. And then what I'm doing is I'm really couching that, but I'm coming outside and over the bead. Now, to add some difference to this, you could use a different color thread. That would be kind of cool. You could put a bead in the middle. So there's lots of things, but this one is where it's tacked down 4 different ways. And so I have some more that kind of looked like building blocks and went with there. Never know. If there's a hole in it, it's a bead. The shells can be beads, lots of things. Dominoes, all those kind of things can be beads. All right, so this one, I do lots and lots of stacks. Okay, Chris, let's look at this one. So this is a piece that I did quite a while ago, and it actually started out, the focal points was part of a necklace that I had made, and I didn't like it, and so I took it apart, and never throwing anything out, I took those pieces, painted a background for it. Then I needed some more texture, and this is all stacks. Everything is a stack on there. And stacks can be short. It can be a sequin and 1 bead, like we talked about last week. It can be multiple beads. So this one, you can see this is a stack. This is a stack. This is a stack. Okay? So what happens with these is I'm going to come up here. And there's really no rules about, doubling a thread or not doubling a thread. When in doubt, double. If you can get into the system of doing that, that's okay. So I like these. These are trade beads. They're French, and they're French plastic. I love them. They're awesome.
Could these methods be used on craft techs?
I would think so. So I have a tendency to do my stacks in sizes where I go up or reduce my beads. Then the trick to this, so here's my stack here. Now here's my bead right here. That's going to keep everything in place. So I've come up through the bead, but I'm not going to go back down through the bead. So I'm going to skip it and go to the rest of my stack and go here. Okay.
And what is a trade bead?
Trade bead is exactly as it sounds. It are beads that were used as a currency. So there's a very number of nomadic people, especially in Africa, who travel with everything on their back. So their wealth is in their beads that they wear. It's quite interesting to look at some of the history about the explorers who brought these glass beads from these different areas, and they brought them as gifts. I don't want to say peace offerings because we know that wasn't the case here, but they are used as a currency, and they might still be in some nomadic areas. But you see many, many pictures. I know a sort more in Africa than the Middle East, but I know it was in the Middle East as well. And you see all these pictures, especially of women who have jewelry and beads and metal. All right, so here is this one. And of course you have to watch that it doesn't get hooked on other things. Okay? So those are my beading lessons, very quick and furious today. Does anybody have some questions that they haven't asked at this point? We will for sure do fringe next week on Saturday. We are posting these on our YouTube video. Our YouTube channel, so that you can see them. If you missed last week's, you can go back and look at it and see what you missed. We are kind of working through first time beading, and I'm going to create a bead book. So we'll work on the fringe. Have any other questions? I'll look at see what other textures. So this is a book. This is cotton. I use the pictures. But, we also have some of these other things, these gorgeous hand-dyed linens, a little bit lighter stitch, even weaves that are there, all hand-dyed, individual colors. We have our Indian cottons. So I'll try to give you an idea on some different surfaces. This one was a little kit. So we have these kits from Wonderful. So this is wool. And the kit comes with stitching cards, which I just think is flipping brilliant. And I think this needs beads. I don't, know that. So there's lots of things. We have wood blocks that we will block print on fabric and then bead the pattern. We've done that multiple times. So there's just, so many opportunities and so many options.
So batik panels as well?
Batik panels as well. Oops, we got a little thing. So there's some beads, some seed beads in there, some metals. Okay, here's some fringe. So fringe doesn't have to be dainty. This is our logo piece. This is has some beads, lots of buttons. To me, again, as I said, if it has a hole in it, it's a bead. And then this piece was I'm sorry, I don't know who made this. It was made for Trish, and it's got some beautiful bugle beads in there, lots of sparkle. The panel is just fabulous. I know that Gwen LaFleur did a panel that is absolutely incredible, and maybe we'll try to ask her to show it to us again, where it was completely beaded. I don't think you could see the panel underneath it. It was amazing. So we'll try to see if she'll do that on a share on Saturday for us. So this is Saturday. Please let us know if there's any other questions. We'll try to watch YouTube and join us for the next beading class next Saturday at 9:30. Thank you for being here.